It's the year 2007. If you were a die-hard Metal Gear fan back then, you were probably glued to your screen, obsessively refreshing forums and video games website, desperately waiting for any new detail about Metal Gear Solid 4. The game had already made waves with jaw-dropping trailers at big events like E3, Gamescom, and TGS. But while the world was hyper-focused on the PlayStation 3's upcoming stealth masterpiece, Kojima Productions quietly dropped an announcement of a completely new Metal Gear Solid game. This one wasn't for PlayStation, PSP, or any traditional gaming platform. Nope, this one was for mobile phones. And no, I don't mean smartphones like iPhones and Androids. I'm talking about those chunky keypad-riffing phones from the mid-2000s running Java. Phones like the LG NV, the Motorola Razr, and all sorts of classic Nokia models. The name? It was simply called Metal Gear Solid Mobile. The buzz for the game was non-existent. It was quietly released in early 2008 on select 3D-capable phones. The game was launched exclusively in the United States via Verizon Wireless. Later, a port with bonus content was released for the Nokia phones that supported the ngage 2.0 platform service like the Nokia N95. Not to be confused with the original ngage phone from 2003, as they were actually very different. Back then, I didn't pay much attention to it. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. All I cared about was Metal Gear Solid 4. I was too hyped for it. Plus, I always had this condescending look on mobile games. To me, they were just cheap distractions, nothing worth taking seriously. The idea that a Metal Gear title on a mobile phone could offer anything remotely meaningful was ridiculous to me. So I completely dismissed it. Yup, I was an arrogant fool. Fast forward to 2014, I was prepping for the launch of Metal Gear Solid V Ground Zeroes by doing a full Metal Gear marathon, trying my best to play through every game in the franchise. That is when I decided to give Metal Gear Solid Mobile an honest shot. So I started researching if there was any way to play Metal Gear Solid Mobile without too much of a hassle. I specifically wanted the ngage 2.0 version since it had more content. Keep in mind, at that time there were no emulators for the Symbian operating system, which what ngage 2.0 service games were running on. So the only way to play the game is to buy a Nokia phone and purchase the game from the ngage 2.0 platform service. To my surprise, that wasn't possible. The service was shut down in 2011. So I thought, okay, what if I just buy the phone off eBay that already had the game installed? Turns out that wasn't possible either. Nokia had shut down their DRM servers, meaning even if you owned the game, you couldn't play it anymore, unless you jailbreak the phone or hacked around it, which I had no clue how to do at the time. And honestly, I wasn't hell-bent on playing the game, so I said, screw it, and moved on again. By 2017, Kojima had left Konami, and the Metal Gear series was essentially frozen in time. Aside from the controversial Metal Gear Survive, seriously screw that game, nothing new was happening. That's when the hunger kicked in. I was in a Metal Gear drought. With nothing on the horizon, I finally decided to give Metal Gear Solid Mobile a real shot. So, I looked again if there is any emulation progress going forward. Again, no luck. Still, there was no reliable Symbian OS emulator out there. I checked eBay again, still nothing. I browsed forums, fan groups, you name it. The game felt lost to time. Although I did find someone selling an iPhone with Metal Gear Solid Touch on it, I should have scooped that one. Eventually, I gave up again. And then came 2020. This is when I met Decimon. Decimon showed up in the Metal Gear speedrunning Discord one day, saying that he managed to buy a Nokia phone and used several outdated guides to install and inject ngage games into it. After a lot of trial and error, he actually got Metal Gear Solid Mobile working. Then, another speedrunner, Plywood, joined in. He got a Nokia phone too, and managed to install the game. I was watching from the sidelines, seeing them not only play the game, but also start exploring speedrun strategies. I wanted to jump in as well, but I didn't right away, since I was still practicing Metal Gear Solid 4 for AGDQ 2021, so I held off. Once AGDQ wrapped up, I was ready to dive in, but first, I needed a Nokia phone. A Nokia N95 phone. I remember that night. I was working the night shift. It was 2 a.m. and I was browsing online looking for a Nokia N95 phone. I checked a website called Harraj. Think of it as the Saudi Arabian version of Craigslist. I searched for Nokia N95 and boom, I found one. Brand new, cheap, and it was being sold right in my city. I contacted the seller and he immediately replied back. He said he could meet me in 15 minutes, not far from my workplace. We met up in a quiet parking lot. It felt surreal, like I was doing something illegal, meeting this guy in the middle of the night. But I handed him the cash, got the package, and went back to work, super excited. He brought the full set: phone, charger, earphones, AV cables, even the original box. I opened the phone, charged it up, and spent the next 2 hours following Dissaman's guide, carefully jailbreaking the phone and installing the game. Sure, there were a few complications, but in the end, the game was working. I was hyped beyond belief. I couldn't wait to play it. But I held off. I wanted my first playthrough to be streamed on Twitch, fully documented for everyone to see. If you are curious to see what it looks like, I will link the video in the description. And man, when I finally played it, it felt like stepping into an alternate timeline. The classic Metal Gear formula distilled into a tiny package. No long dramatic cutscenes, no endless codec calls, just pure sneaking, suspense, and a strange sense of, why is this actually amazing? I might be overreacting, but that's how I genuinely felt, a feeling that I have missed for a long time. So, what's make this game super interesting? Let's talk about it, starting with the story. So, spoiler alert. Metal Gear Solid Mobile is set between the events of Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 2 during the early days of Snake and Otacon's time running philanthropy. After the events of Metal Gear Solid 1, Ocelot has leaked all the technical information for Metal Gear Rex into the black market, which led to Solid Snake and Otacon forming Philanthropy, an anti-Metal Gear organization that is officially recognized by the UN, with the goal of tracking all the Metal Gear Rex derivatives, gathering evidence of their existence, and then attempting to prevent their completion or destroy them. The story of this game follows one of those early missions. Otacon receives intel about the development of a new Metal Gear from an AI programmer named Victoria Reed, as she tries to blow the whistle on the project. She reaches out to Otacon, claiming her AI research is being used for a destructive weapon. As a result, Snake is sent in alone to rescue her from a Black Ops research facility. But once inside, things feels off. The military presence is oddly passive for a Black Ops site. Despite this, Snake infiltrates the facility and eventually reaches the basement where he is captured in a cell. Snake then is contacted via Kodak by the terrorist leader named simply the Commander. And in a typical Kojima-esque fashion, it turns out that Victoria Reed was actually not a real person, but an AI program. Victoria Reed, VR, get it? It was an AI created by the terrorists to lure Snake into the facility and deactivate their security system. This resulted in allowing the terrorists to essentially walk right in, kill all the soldiers, and seize control of the Metal Gear Rex stored in the basement. Snake later was able to escape his cell and make his way to Rex. As Snake approaches the location of where Rex is being held, suddenly out of nowhere, realities start to fracture. Snake enters a strange, glitchy room flooded with green and blue light, and get bombarded with bizarre Kodak calls, some breaking the fourth wall, telling the player to shut off their phone. The real Otacon then finally contacts Snake, alerting him that he has been drugged, kidnapped, and placed into a virtual reality simulation, and he is in the process of hacking the simulation to save Snake. Otacon can't determine who is behind it, but he suspects a group with vast resources, likely the Patriots. Since Snake is deep into the program, Otacon advises him to finish the mission and destroy the simulated Metal Gear. Snake agrees, encounters the commander on top of a VR Metal Gear Rex, and easily dispatches him. The simulation ends. Snake then wakes up to unnamed voices speaking, They say that while Snake did prove useful, he failed to provide them with the battle data they needed for the project. They instruct someone to erase all memories of the simulation and release him back to where they kidnapped him. One of the voices then ominously said, "Let's see if Jack can do better." So yeah, the story pretty straightforward. And before you ask, no, this game isn't canon. But weirdly enough, it fit really well in the timeline between Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 2. I will leave it up to you whether you want to count it or not. As for the gameplay, you play as Solid Snake using the phone's keypad, which gives the game a pretty unique vibe. It blends gameplay elements from Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, so if you are familiar with those, you will feel right at home. The game has a very cool feature, the utilization of the phone's camera. You can use it to take real-life photos and use the colors within the photo to turn them into a custom camo for Snake's suit. The same camera also lets you control the in-game view in first person, and even aim and control Nikita missiles with it. You can still do all the classic sneaking stuff, like hanging off ledges, hiding in lockers, and there are even a few VR missions sprinkled in for good measure. Now, despite all these features, which is surprisingly a lot for a mobile phone, the game is not perfect. The gameplay is limited to 4-directional movement. The graphics are rough, the frame rate isn't great, the sound quality is downright abysmal, and there's only one boss fight. Oh, and the game is very short. But here's the thing. This is a 3D mobile game that's only 3 megabytes in size, and somehow it still delivers a full-on Metal Gear experience. That alone is kind of insane. Considering the limitations of the time, what they pulled off is actually really impressive. So, if you are a hardcore Metal Gear fan, I highly recommend checking it out at least once. And no, you do not need to hunt down a Nokia phone like we did back in the day. Thankfully, there's now a Symbian OS emulator that lets you play the game without any issues. Seriously, go play it. It is genuinely a hidden gem. Now, to be clear, although this game isn't canon, I still hope Konami surprises us someday with a remastered version. I mean, look what they did with Haunted Castle, an obscure 1987 Castlevania arcade game. When they announced the Castlevania Dominus Collection, they suddenly dropped a remastered version of Haunted Castle out of nowhere. As a Castlevania fan, that move shook me. Nobody asked for it. They just said, "Here, play it and enjoy it." So hey Konami, could you do the same thing with Metal Gear Solid Mobile? Just once. Show us you still care. Surprise us. We all know that you are working very hard to bring back the fans that you have lost back then. And a remastered version of Metal Gear Solid Mobile is gonna help tremendously with your redemption. In conclusion, Metal Gear Solid Mobile might be short, clunky, and forgotten by time. But it's also a fascinating little piece of Metal Gear history that deserves way more love. So tell me, boys and girls, have you played Metal Gear Solid Mobile? And what do you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and have a nice day.